Dr. Adrian Fletcher, Scottsdale, Arizona, licensed psychologist, speaker, author, and consultant. From the outside looking in, I had a very lovely life. I had a loving husband, a beautiful home, a great job, and start to my career. But it felt like just going through the motions. There wasn't a lot of soul connection. Even though I had a great deal of pride in being a therapist, something was missing. I didn't really know who I was. And come to find in the later years, post-2018, we figured out what was going on, but it felt very empty, and I spent a great many years, probably 4 decades of my life, suicidal and wishing I were not on this planet at all. So it was a very empty, hopeless, very sad life, but on the outside looked very beautiful and like I had everything that most people would desire or want for themselves in their life. Yeah, there was a lot of physical symptoms. Everything from pain in my limbs, in my joints, headaches, fatigue, restlessness, anxiety, depression, really, really low energy, even when I wouldn't necessarily meet criteria for clinical depression, just really low energy, sluggish, almost dazed and confused, and just didn't feel good at all physically. And it was hard to keep on track with movement and moving my body and taking good care of myself because I almost just didn't even have the energy to do that. Even walking around the park was difficult to do. It's like a perfect storm of culminating events. I mean, I fell apart in 2016, 2017. Originally diagnosed with a depressive disorder with psychotic features, which is actually not the accurate diagnosis. I live with a very misunderstood mental health condition known as dissociative identity disorder. And really, when everything came to a head after my mom had died, I was drinking quite heavily, trying to self-medicate with alcohol around the pain of her loss. And it wasn't until I decided to take a serious look at my relationship with alcohol and took a year off of drinking entirely, also included going to AA meetings and anything I could do to keep myself away from alcohol, that I was then flooded with a bunch of memories from childhood, early childhood sexual abuse and the sex trafficking that my father had put me through. And I spent a great deal of time in recovery, getting to know my history, getting to know myself and all the parts that make up me. And I pride myself so much on being a psychologist and helping people find their voice and stand up for what they believe in and set boundaries. And I started to feel really incongruent. Here I was as this therapist with this horrific background and story of overcoming and rising from the ashes, and it no longer felt congruent for me to sit there with this story in the background, knowing that people like me that also live with dissociative identity disorder and or trauma of any kind are often not advocated for, and nobody was advocating for me, and the only person who was going to advocate for me was me. So I decided that it was time to take a stand after, years in the healing process and a lot of consultation, and I stepped forward with my voice and my lived experience in October of 2021, and I haven't looked back. I believe that we can all overcome challenges, but we need a great deal of support in order to do that. And for me, finding my voice and getting connected with my soul and really my purpose here is why I needed to take a stand. After I chose this new path of coming forward and speaking publicly and openly and authentically about my lived experience as a trafficking survivor and a person living with DID, I can't express in enough words how much my life has changed, how much better it is, how different it is. I don't know on a day-to-day where things are going, but I know that I feel so much better because I'm living in my authentic truth and I'm helping and serving on a global level. And there's nothing that brings me more joy in life to know that I am making an impact and a difference and bringing hope to other people, because I have been in very dark places where I was very hopeless. And I think we need bright, shining lights in this world. And I do believe that most of us who overcome serious issues or concerns are able to be the guiding light for others walking the path behind me. I have a podcast called Braving the Way with Dr. Fletcher, and every day that I wake up, I try to be a new level of brave. It's not easy to do, and my hope is that by me braving the way, as others have braved the way before me, that others will follow in whatever capacity that looks like for them, for their own journey of recovery with any health-related concern. I think when I came out publicly and was really open and honest about the number of dollars I've spent on my healing, the years of dedication, the multitude of providers and modalities I have done, I think people are feeling very inspired and hopeful that they can potentially do that for themselves. It is not a journey for the faint of heart, and I always have to remember that I'm not here to prove to anybody what I did or how I did it. I'm here to just be a walking example and serve as a role model in some capacity, with the hope that I'm able to spread love, hope, and inspiration by telling my story. The routines and regimens that really help me stand in my truth are creating time in the morning for mindfulness practices, whether that's lighting Palo Santo, saying a prayer, pulling a card, going outside with the dogs, and being really intentional with what is the energy I want to cultivate for my day. Where before, I don't think I put too much mindfulness or intention. It was just sort of like going through the motions. But with health and wellness being of utmost priority, in order for me to continue to walk this journey and do this work, it really requires routines slowing down in both the morning and the evening, and then also not overpacking my schedule and making sure that I have time throughout the week to connect with myself and journal and walk or work out or go for a hike. Really being intentional always about what are the things I can do to best support my brain and my body as I move forward, which is kind of the exact opposite of what our culture encourages. You know, there's a lot of workaholism in our culture, and I can definitely say that I've been a workaholic in the past, and that's not something I want to take with me in the future. It's a very moving question. I would say it would be my mother, who's no longer with us, who passed in 2018. And although I'll never have any documentation to prove this, I do believe she was also a survivor living with DID. It's been talked about in therapy, and it's been suggested by many therapists. She was a tough woman, lived a tough life, and did whatever she could to provide a better life for her children. And I think, as so many of us do, there isn't always an opportunity to have those harder conversations before someone passes away. And yeah, she would be the one person that I wish that I could give a hug to.